Hola and welcome to ProSpanish. We're going to get started straight away so that you can see just how easy it is to learn Spanish quickly. More advanced subscribers may want to skip forward to the time frame on the screen. Otherwise, you can stick with us for some extra practice. Okay, we're going to start off with a straightforward word, which you may already know. And if you don't, and this could be your first Spanish lesson, then that's completely fine too. So, to eat is comer. Comer, to eat. Now, I've mentioned in previous videos how the good stuff, the really useful language, is often not taught until you've been studying for ages because it's often seen as too complicated. Well, using the ProSpanish approach, I'm going to show you now how easy it is to learn the most useful language right from the first lesson. So, comer, to eat, to eat. If we want to say we eat in Spanish, we just take the R off and add mos, and that'll give us we eat. So take the R off and add mos, we get comemos, comemos. So we've changed it from to eat, comer, to we eat, comemos. Let's try with another verb. And you don't need to memorize any of this, just follow my instructions. So in Spanish, to play is jugar. To play, jugar. And if we want to say we play, what is it we have to do? We just take off the R and add mos. So we have jugamos. Jugamos is we play. What do you think this means? Jugamos al tenis. Jugamos al tenis. Jugamos al tenis is we play tennis. Now, if we want to say shall we in Spanish, shall we go? Shall we watch a film? Shall we have a drink? Shall we? That shall doesn't really exist as a translation in Spanish. We would just say, we watch a film? So instead of shall we watch a film, it comes out as we watch a film? We go now? Shall we go now? So, shall we play? We just say, we play. Jugamos. Jugamos. So, jugamos is shall we play? It's just the same as we play, but as a question. We play? Shall we play? Jugamos. What do you think it means? What does this shall we question mean? ¿Jugamos al tenis? ¿Jugamos al tenis? Shall we play tennis? And how would you say in Spanish, shall we eat? Shall we eat? Well, we eat, we saw earlier. Take the R off and add mos. We've got comemos. Comemos is we eat. So to ask the question, we eat. Shall we eat? Comemos. Comemos. Shall we eat? And what do you think this shall we question means? Comemos pizza. Comemos pizza. Shall we eat pizza? And that's how we say shall we in Spanish. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's focus now on the main language that we're going to be using today. And as mentioned before, don't try to memorize this. You'll retain it as we work through the lesson. So, comer is to eat. We already saw that. Comer is to eat. Straightforward. Let's go straight to the next one. Tomar algo. Tomar algo. To have a drink. Tomar algo. It literally means to take something. So, do you fancy taking something? Do you fancy having a drink? Do you fancy a drink? So, tomar algo, to take something, to have a drink. How would you say we have a drink? We have a drink. We take something. So, do you remember what you have to do to change it to we? You take the R off the verb and add mos. So we would have tomamos algo. Tomamos algo is we have a drink. So we usually have a drink after work. And how would you change that into shall we have a drink? Shall we have a drink? And remember that it's exactly the same as we have a drink, but it's a question. ¿Tomamos algo? ¿Tomamos algo? Shall we have a drink? Okay, next one is volver. So volver, to return. And you'll probably hear the V in Spanish is pronounced like a B. Volver, volver, to return. And I've written to return, but in English we tend to use to go back or to come back. We don't normally say, I'll return later. We say, I'll come back later. So volver, to return, or to come back, or to go back. And you can, to try to help you remember, volver, you can see it's part of, or you can see part of the word for revolve in there. Revolve, which is something that goes around and comes back. So that might help you remember that volver is to return. It goes around and comes back. Volver. How would you say, shall we go back? One word. What would that be? Shall we go back? How would you say that? Well, we just need to get we go back. So we take the R off and add mos. We ask it like a question. Volvemos. Volvemos. Shall we go back? Or it can be, shall we come back? Volvemos. And we saw earlier, jugar al tenis is to play tennis. Jugar al tenis. What does it mean if I say jugar al fútbol? Jugar al fútbol. To play football. All the sports are nice and easily in Spanish. Jugar al rugby. Jugar al hockey. What does this question mean? ¿Jugamos al fútbol? ¿Jugamos al fútbol? Shall we play football? Okay, the next one is to start or to begin. Empezar. Empezar. To start or begin. To begin. Empezar. How would you say, shall we start? Like, should we get on? Should we start? What would that be? Empezamos. Empezamos. Take the R off and add mos. And of course, it could be not a question. It could just be, we start at 9. Empezamos a las 9. We start at 9, for example. To dance, bailar. Bailar, to dance. Bailar. You can probably guess that I'm going to ask, how do you say, shall we dance? Bailamos. Bailamos. Salir is to go out, to sally forth, to salir, to go out. Salir. And this one's not a question, it's just we. What do you think it means if I say salimos mucho? Salimos mucho. What does that mean? Salimos mucho. We go out a lot. Mucho, much. We go out a lot. Salimos mucho. And finally, to have dinner. So to have dinner is just one word. So it's a bit like to dine. We wouldn't say that in English, but to have dinner. Cenar is to have dinner. Cenar. How would you say, shall we have dinner? Cenamos. Cenamos. Shall we have dinner? Okay, so we're already getting 3 for the price of 1. We have our to do, our infinitive verb, and we can change it very easily into we and to the question, shall we? Okay, let's have a look at how we can start our sentences. So, quiero, I want, and puedo, I can. So we'll just look at those as a little pair for the moment. So, quiero, I want, and puedo, I can. So what would it mean if I said, quiero volver? Quiero volver. What does that mean? I want to go back. Or I want to come back. I want to return. Quiero volver. How about if I said, puedo bailar? Puedo bailar. I can dance. Puedo bailar. I can dance. Or how about if I said, no puedo? No puedo. I can is puedo. No puedo just turns it into a negative. I can't. So no puedo bailar. I can't dance. How would you say, I can't go out? It looks like it's I can't to go out, but we would say I can't go out in English. How would you say that? No puedo salir. No puedo salir. I can't sally forth. Okay, next we have voy a, I'm going to. Voy a, I'm going to. And a very useful one, acabo de, I've just. Okay, and you're probably thinking, gosh, how am I going to remember all of this? You don't need to. Just follow the sequence that I'm giving. So, voy a, I'm going to, and acabo de, I've just. What does it mean if I say, voy a cenar? Voy a cenar. I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to have dinner. Or they might say, no voy a volver. So with a negative, I'm not going to. No voy a volver. What does that mean? I'm not going to go back. I'm not going back. And what would it mean if I said, acabo de comer? Acabo de comer. I've just eaten. How would you say, I've just eaten pizza? Acabo de comer pizza. Acabo de comer pizza. Okay, on to the next two. So, suelo is I tend to, or it gets translated as I usually. So, suelo, suelo. Strangely, the word suelo also means the floor. The floor is el suelo. But here, suelo is I tend to, or I usually do something. And then we have tengo que. So tengo is I have. Tengo, I have. Tengo que changes it to like I have to, I must. Tengo que. What would it mean if I said suelo tomar algo? Suelo tomar algo. I tend to have a drink. So it might be I tend to have a drink after work. Suelo tomar algo. I tend to have a drink. I usually have a drink. How about tengo que jugar al tenis? Tengo que jugar al tenis. What does that mean? I have to play tennis. I have to play tennis. Or it could be tengo que bailar. I have to dance. But probably more likely something like I have to go back. I have to return. What would that be? Tengo que volver. Tengo que volver. And next we have me gustaría, I would like. Me gustaría, I would like. And one in the past, I tried. Intenté. Intenté. So me gustaría, I would like. And intenté, I tried. How would you say, I'd like to start? I'd like to start now. What would that be? Me gustaría empezar. Me gustaría empezar. I'd like to start. How about I tried to dance? What would that be? I tried to dance. Intenté bailar. Intenté bailar. I tried to dance. And what would this be? I'm going to sort of take apart one of our phrases in the middle there and use the word somewhere else. So what do you think this means? Intenté comer algo. Intenté comer algo. Can you remember what algo meant? I said that tomar algo is to take something. We would translate it as to have a drink, but it literally means to take something. Tomar algo. So now I'm saying, intenté comer algo. What does that mean? I tried to eat something. I tried to eat something. And we'll just take a quick pause there while I mention our very popular Levels 1 to 6 course. This takes the complete beginner or a near beginner right up to a conversational level of Spanish in a series of very easy to follow steps. All the lessons on this YouTube channel are supplementary, whereas the core Levels 1 to 6 is very much a step-by-step program delivered by the same teacher as all the other videos on the ProSpanish YouTube channel. And while the style is very similar to what you'll be used to from these videos on the channel, the key difference is that every lesson carefully builds on the previous lessons so that you can really feel that progress of going from very little or no Spanish up to a level where you can confidently hold a conversation in Spanish. So again, that's available exclusively from prospanish.co.uk. Okay, let's add some more onto our final column, and these are nice and easy. So, con un amigo. Un amigo, a friend. Con un amigo, with a friend. Con un amigo. And con él, with him. And con ella, with her. So, con él, with him. Con ella, with her. So just looking at the last two columns, what does it mean if I say bailar con ella? Bailar con ella. To dance with her. To dance with her. What does it mean if I said jugar al tenis con un amigo? Jugar al tenis con un amigo. What does that mean? To play tennis with a friend. And how about salir con él? Salir con él. What does that mean? To go out with him. To go out with him. And cast your mind back to how we changed to do to we or shall we. Take off the R and add mos. So what does this mean? Salimos con él. Salimos con él. It's a question, so it's shall we? Shall we go out with him? Shall we go out with him? Salimos con él. How about if I said cenamos con ella? Cenamos con ella. What does that mean? Shall we have dinner with her? shall we have dinner with her? So we saw that con is with, con él, with him, con ella, with her, and without is sin ella, without her, sin ella. How would you say without him? Sin él, without him. If you're ordering a natural water, so not a sparkling water, you'd ask with agua sin gas, without gas, without fizz. So sin, without. And also sin hielo, without ice. Okay, and then we have ahora, now. That's nice and easy because hora is like the hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. Hora, ahora, like to this hour, now, ahora. And then very useful, antes. So antes is used as for before, antes, but it's also the normal way to say earlier. So what would this shall we question mean? Empezamos antes. Empezamos antes. Should we start earlier? Or how about volvemos ahora? Volvemos ahora. Shall we go back now? Volvemos ahora. Shall we go back now? Okay, now during this next phase, just look at the grid and see if you can work out what's being said. What do you think this means? Voy a volver con un amigo. Voy a volver con un amigo. I'm going to return with a friend. But we would say, I'm going to come back with a friend. Or I'm going to go back with a friend, it could mean. How about quiero tomar algo con ella. Quiero tomar algo con ella. I want to have a drink with her. What does this mean? Tengo que salir ahora. Tengo que salir ahora. I have to go out now. What about intenté bailar con él? Intenté bailar con él. I tried to dance with him. How about, let's go for a negative one now. No puedo jugar al tenis ahora. No puedo jugar al tenis ahora. And what does this mean? Suelo empezar antes. Suelo empezar antes. I tend to start earlier. So you might be talking about work. I tend to start work earlier. Suelo empezar antes. How about me gustaría cenar con ella. Me gustaría cenar con ella. I'd like to have dinner with her. How about a shall we one now? Empezamos sin ella. Empezamos sin ella. Shall we start without her? How about comemos ahora? Comemos ahora. Shall we eat now? And you might add on it something like, so comemos ahora, shall we eat now? Tengo que volver antes. Tengo que volver antes. I have to go back earlier. So let's eat now. And what does this mean? Acabo de tomar algo con un amigo. Acabo de tomar algo con un amigo. I've just had a drink with a friend. Next, have a look at this listening pyramid. So we start at the top, you try and work out what's being said, and we work our way down each time the phrase is getting longer. Okay, this is a brilliant innovation from ProSpanish, and it really helps to tune your ear. And later we'll see how the speaking works as well. Okay, have a listen.
Voy a.
Voy a. Voy a.
So voy a, and voy a meant I'm going to. Voy a. Okay, I'll add to that now.
Voy a tomar algo.
Voy a tomar algo.
Voy a tomar algo.
So voy a tomar algo. And you remember that meant I'm going to have a drink. Voy a tomar algo. Next.
Voy a tomar algo con un amigo.
Voy a tomar algo con un amigo. Voy a tomar algo con un amigo.
So voy a tomar algo con un amigo. I'm going to have a drink with a friend. Okay, so a fairly straightforward one. Let's move straight on to the next one.
Me gustaría.
Me gustaría.
Me gustaría.
So me gustaría is I'd like. Me gustaría, I would like. Let's build on that.
Me gustaría salir.
Me gustaría salir. Me gustaría salir.
So me gustaría salir. I'd like to go out. And if at any time you just want to test your pronunciation, that's one of the things that we can do with the microphone here. So we'll just click it. Me gustaría salir. Okay, so it's perfect. Well done. Okay, but we'll come back to the speaking later. Okay, so let's try the last one here.
Me gustaría salir con ella.
Me gustaría salir con ella.
Me gustaría salir con ella.
So me gustaría salir con ella. I'd like to go out with her. Okay, to start at the top.
No puedo.
No puedo.
No puedo. I can't. Next.
No puedo bailar.
No puedo bailar. No puedo bailar.
No puedo bailar. I can't dance. Okay, next.
No puedo bailar ahora.
No puedo bailar ahora. No puedo bailar ahora.
So no puedo bailar ahora. I can't dance now. Let's just listen into that again, now that we've got the text.
No puedo bailar ahora.
No puedo bailar ahora.
Okay, and down to the next one.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de. No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de.
So no puedo bailar ahora, acabo de. Means I can't dance now, I've just... And I wonder what it's going to say. Let's have a listen.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de cenar.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de cenar.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de cenar.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de cenar. I can't dance now, I've just had dinner. And let's listen to that again.
No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de cenar. No puedo bailar ahora, acabo de cenar.
Okay, let's try one more. Start at the top.
Tengo que.
Tengo que.
Tengo que.
So, tengo que. I have to. Next.
Tengo que volver.
Tengo que volver. Tengo que volver.
Tengo que volver. I have to. Do you remember volver, like revolve? I have to come back. Or go back in this case. Either. I have to go back.
Tengo que volver antes. Tengo que volver antes. Tengo que volver antes.
Tengo que volver antes. I have to go back earlier.
Tengo que volver antes. Empezamos.
Tengo que volver antes. Empezamos.
Tengo que volver antes. Empezamos.
So, tengo que volver antes. Empezamos. And we'll see what comes. So, I have to go back earlier. Shall we start?
Tengo que volver antes. ¿Empezamos sin ella?
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 So, I have to return. I have to go back earlier. Shall we start without her? We'll come back in a few minutes to do some speaking with these pyramids. There are 600 of these included in the all-in-one course, and you will have seen already just what a big difference this can make to your learning. And now it's your turn to say some sentences in Spanish. You can use the grid for as much or as little support as you need. Okay, so how would you say, I'm going to have a drink with her? What would that be? Voy a tomar algo con ella. Voy a tomar algo con ella. How would you say, I tend to start earlier? What would that be? I tend to start earlier. Suelo empezar antes. Suelo empezar antes. How would you say, I don't tend to start without her? What would that be? I don't tend to start without her. So you'll be starting with no. No suelo empezar sin ella. No suelo empezar sin ella. Another negative one. How would you say, I can't have dinner with him? I can't have dinner with him. No puedo cenar con él. No puedo cenar con él. How about a shall we? Let's try that. How would you say, should we play tennis now? ¿Jugamos al tenis ahora? ¿Jugamos al tenis ahora? What about straightforward one? Shall we dance? Bailamos. Bailamos. And how would you say, shall we have dinner without her? ¿Cenamos sin ella? ¿Cenamos sin ella? Okay, well, let's go back to one starting with our first column. How would you say, I'd like to go out with her? What would that be? Me gustaría salir con ella. Me gustaría salir con ella. Let's have a longer one now that's mixing it up a bit. How would you say, I can't go out. I have to have dinner with a friend. What would that be? I can't go out. I have to have dinner with a friend. No puedo salir. Tengo que cenar con un amigo. No puedo salir. I can't go out. Tengo que cenar con un amigo. How would you say, I've just started now? Acabo de empezar ahora. Acabo de empezar ahora. Let's try another long one. How would we say, I have to go back earlier. Shall we start without her? It's quite a long one. I have to go back earlier. Shall we start without her? Tengo que volver antes. ¿Empezamos sin ella? Tengo que volver antes. ¿Empezamos sin ella? And how about, I'm not going to dance with her. I'm not going to dance with her. No voy a bailar con ella. No voy a bailar con ella. Okay, so back to the pyramids for some speaking practice, some fluency practice. So let's take this one, and we can just, well, there's lots and lots of different ways we can make use of the speaking function. So with this one, we'll just work our way down. So we'll start at the top, we click the microphone, the English will appear, the English text, and we have to say the Spanish. Me gustaría. Okay, good. Me gustaría salir. Okay. Me gustaría salir con ella. So I'd like to go out with her. Okay, very straightforward. Let's try a slightly harder one. Okay, and we don't have to start at the very top. We could even start right at the bottom. Let's start halfway down. No puedo bailar ahora. Good. No puedo bailar ahora. Acabo de. Okay, and on to the final one. No puedo bailar ahora. Acabo de cenar. Okay. And let's have a look at this one. And we will let's just go straight to the final line. See if we can do this. Tengo que volver antes. ¿Empezamos sin ella? Okay, so that's fine. So again, these are unique to ProSpanish. They're a real game changer for listening and for speaking. And there are 600 of them, or actually there are more than 600 of them included in the all-in-one ProSpanish course. And so just before we move on to the more advanced part of this lesson, another reminder that the ProSpanish course is available for download from prospanish.co.uk. That's exclusively from prospanish.co.uk. Or you can just Google ProSpanish. Okay, and so on to the advanced part of this lesson. So if you look at our final column, we've got the same verbs, but they're in we. As you can see, we eat, we have dinner, we play tennis. But you'll notice it's not the usual indicative ending. So we eat, like normally we eat would be comemos, comemos. But these are all in the subjunctive, so it's kind of the opposite ending. That means that if in the normal indicative tense it ends in imos or hemos, now in the subjunctive it will be amos and vice versa. So we eat, comamos, we have dinner, cenemos, we play tennis, juguemos al tenis, we start, empecemos, we dance, bailemos, we go out, salgamos, we return, volvamos, and we have a drink, tomemos algo. And now let's have a look why the subjunctive is being triggered here. So when, cuando. Well, usually when would not be a trigger for the subjunctive. So when we meet up, we do whatever. That would just be normal indicative. When I get up, I have a shower. Indicative, normal present tense. But here, this when is referring to the future. So if we skip back to the first column, it starts with I'll do it. So I'll do it when we have dinner. So when we have dinner is referring to some time in the future. So it hasn't happened yet. And that is the same with the other ones. So antes de que, before. Now antes de que, you can have that as a rule that antes de que is always followed by the subjunctive, but that's just an aside because here antes de que, just like cuando, is referring to the future. I'll do it before we go out. So it's referring to the future. After, same thing. I'll do it after we get back, after we return, something that hasn't happened yet. So that will automatically be followed by a subjunctive. And then a really useful little phrase at the end there, en cuanto, as soon as. And again, we're referring to the future here. I'll do it as soon as we start, whatever it might be. Okay, and again in the first column, we've got se lo diré, se lo diré. I'll tell him or her. It could actually also be I'll tell them, but for the moment we're going to stick to se lo diré, I'll tell him or her. So just listen to these phrases and see if you can work out what's being said. Se lo diré cuando cenemos. Se lo diré cuando cenemos. I'll tell her or him when we have dinner. How about lo haré antes de que juguemos al tenis. Lo haré antes de que juguemos al tenis. I'll do it before we play tennis. What about lo haré en cuanto salgamos. Lo haré en cuanto salgamos. I'll do it as soon as we go out or as soon as we leave. How about se lo diré después de que comamos. Se lo diré después de que comamos. So I'll tell her after we eat or after we have lunch, it could be. What would this mean? Lo haré antes de que volvamos. Lo haré antes de que volvamos. I'll do it before we come back, or before we go back. And what does this mean? Se lo diré en cuanto empecemos. Se lo diré en cuanto empecemos. I'll tell him as soon as we start. Okay, let's swap around and you do the speaking. How would you say, I'll tell her after we dance? Se lo diré después de que bailemos. Se lo diré después de que bailemos. What about, I'll do it as soon as we have dinner? Lo haré en cuanto cenemos. Lo haré en cuanto cenemos. How about, I'll tell her before we have a drink? Se lo diré antes de que tomemos algo. Se lo diré antes de que tomemos algo. What about, I'll tell him after we play tennis? Se lo diré después de que juguemos al tenis. Se lo diré después de que juguemos al tenis. How would you say, I'll do it when we get back or when we return? Lo haré cuando volvamos. Lo haré cuando volvamos. How about, I'll tell him as soon as we leave? Se lo diré en cuanto salgamos. Se lo diré en cuanto salgamos. And that concludes today's Pro-Spanish lesson. As mentioned earlier, if you're looking to become a confident and a competent speaker of Spanish, then head over to prospanish.co.uk where you can download the full Levels 1 to 6 course.